All right, y'all. This is Bible Stories Revisited. I did a little believe it or not binge. Didn't see the last couple of videos, so I wanted to do a quick catch up. Feel like this is a really beneficial thing, and just like this is a channel like originally like for me to like it just helped me out with like certain things that I wanted to talk and vent about. Um, I'll have more content coming out soon. Just cause like every time like I notice like, oh, someone new subscribed, it just reminds me that like even though this channel like benefits me, it also has the possibility of benefiting others out there who might be um going down that same journey, who have went through that same journey before. It's always good to understand you are not alone in that experience. So, excuse me. Let's watch this. Still not a drag queen. I wonder what this is about. Like, I see the usual youth pastor got, you know what I'm saying, can't seem to stop touching kids. I'm fortunate enough to where, like, at least to my knowledge, none of the youth pastors in my church partaketh in any of those activities or got caught, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't happen because, as you can see, especially in the more southern places, the more big churches where like things get brought to light, I would say. Like, I'm not even putting it off the table that nothing could have happened because things get swept under the rug a lot. But yeah, it's just I actually don't know what this video could be, so let's watch it and then I might do a yap later. Yeah,
a little content warning before we get started to talk about things that pastors do. If you know what I mean, awful things that some pastors do. So just be aware of that as you watch this one. It's not an easy trip. There's a long history of men dressing up as women for entertainment. In ancient Greece, women were seen as inferior to men. So Plato was basically the Andrew Tate of his day. So when people started doing theater, it seemed inappropriate for women to be on stage, so men would play the role of women. When Shakespeare was putting on his plays, women were also banned from the stage. I've heard a couple different explanations for this. One is that the stage was usually associated with the church and with religion, so allowing a woman on stage was seen as blasphemy. I've also heard that many people saw the theater as scandalous and immoral, and that women especially should not partake in something so scandalous and immoral. Either way, this meant that men would have to play the roles of women. Drag was a very popular mainstay in vaudeville, and during World War II, many soldiers put on drag shows to entertain their friends. And the man dressed as a woman theme has been a mainstay in Hollywood.
Hallelujah! 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 Oh, this is so fabulous! Ain't nothing like getting together and have a good meal.
It's not just a bag. It's Prada.
My first day as a woman, I'm getting hot flashes.
R.I.P.
But you don't understand. I'm good. I'm a man. Well, nobody's perfect.
Nobody's perfect.
And in the last 10 years, drag performers have started to read to kids in libraries.
Author Michelle T. first created Drag Queen Story Hour in San Francisco in 2015.
This is going to be interesting because this is something my coworker just can't seem to understand or can't seem to get behind. And I'm just like, well, maybe it's the fact that they're saying that these people exist because for a while and kind of just get swept under the rug, and he just can't seem to compute that. He's like, not around the kids though. It's like, but you're still insinuating that they're going to do something to the kids. Pastors are much more I already see what he's about to do here. Like, literally, it is much more dangerous and much more of a danger for youth pastors to be around children. They have a much worse record than that. Like, but yeah, you know how people like to twist
inspire
things.
a love of reading while teaching deeper lessons on diversity, self-love, and appreciation of others.
Everyone is different and everyone is not bad, said Scooter, who is a turtle. Different
is special.
Yet despite the very long history of people of all ages enjoying watching men in women's clothing, recently some people have decided that drag performers reading to children is the line that they never should have crossed.
Drag queens are reading stories to children in public libraries, thereby normalizing this behavior. Of men dressing up in high heels, a wig, a bra, and copious amounts of makeup. Whatever happened to puppet shows and craft day at the library?
I don't think these have replaced other library events.
It hasn't.
They aren't only doing drag in libraries. There's other things parents can take their kids to. And nobody is forced to go to these events. These are volunteer things. You can take your kids or you can not take your kids. Aren't these the same people who want school choice?
Now we're supposed to be drag queens.
I didn't even know that. So literally, it's been a volunteer thing this whole time. So you didn't even, oh my gosh. Well, oh my gosh, the way that the media really flares this up, like they literally have no reason to be mad at this point. At all. Like literally, it is the parents volunteering to have their children experience people. Like, I didn't know, like, trans people existed until I was, like, I don't know. Until I went to high school, I can't lie. That shit was hilarious. But it's like, it would be better if you just knew they existed at a, you know what I'm saying, a younger age. So you wouldn't be so shocked. Because I'm not gonna lie. I was one of the people that was like, whoa. I was like, why is her voice so deep? I was just like, I just didn't understand at that time. You know what I'm saying? And like, I feel like if you get that understanding, if you have that understanding, it's just easier for you to know. So that's why moments like this are important. And if you as a parent don't think your children wants to be around that, if you feel like they might be influenced beyond your capability, that is also your decision as a parent. And that's why it's volunteered. That's insane.
How far will things go? You know, I've told you for years that LGBT activists will overplay their hand. That those who
and
who
they
bullied
still are
the bullies.
outraged.
Don't worry. If you're wondering, like I was, how reading to kids about equality and inclusion is somehow bullying, he will not clarify.
They never do.
Like, why don't they ever want to dance at nursing homes? Why don't they ever want to, like, read books to sick people in the hospital? Why is it only kids? Why is it only children's library sections? Why is it only kindergarten classes that they want to go in their tight leotards and their fishnet tights and their high heels and their fake boobs and their bras sticking out? Like, why is it only children that they want to interact with while they're dressed up as that? If you don't think there's something wrong with this, and there is something wrong with you.
Because they do read and perform to the sick and the unhoused and the elderly.
Literally.
And drag shows are primarily adult only. It's just that sometimes they read to kids, and that's what people get angry about. So that's what
gets on the news.
The ironic thing is that with all the anger towards drag performers who want to read to kids to encourage kids to love reading and to love people and to accept people, they miss the people who are actually hurting kids. The ones right in their own churches.
Ah, here we go. Remember, this is a little bit sped up.
Hey, everybody, thanks so much for liking and subscribing and commenting. And
It's like, with my perspective now, it's like it's hard for me to understand why they don't get it. But the more that I take myself like back to like the way that I used to think, I do kind of understand it. But when I realized it was just me not being willing to actually do research and actually do the information, I was just going off of the information of what the pastor would do. You know what I'm saying?
the other awesome stuff you do, because of course you're awesome. You're like the best of all of them. I really appreciate you. Thank you. So like I said, people are very angry about Drag Story Hour.
It's a relatively new phenomenon catching on in libraries and reading programs nationwide. Drag queens reading to kids during story hours. It's popular in some circles and strongly opposed in others.
I'm appalled. It's an abomination. Why are children being exposed to adult behavior?
Reading is an adult behavior?
Wanted to be shut down all over the country. Why? This is a perverse, destructive program pushing lies.
Because they do read fiction sometimes, so do they see that as a lie?
I love fiction books. Do you?
No, I don't.
No, I don't.
They're not real.
They're not real.
I consider real.
Why? I don't know what they think the
The drag queens are going to do. Like, they're going to wear wigs and dresses and read stories. Big deal.
Exactly.
Come on.
It's bright colors and teaching kids acceptance, and people are so angry. Obviously, this isn't about a man dressing as a woman. People don't actually care about that. This is about a gay man dressing as a woman. This is about the message of inclusivity.
On one side of the street, LGBTQ allies, and on the other, anti-drag protesters, including the Proud Boys, a far-right extremist group.
Because white supremacy and hetero/cis supremacy has always gone hand in hand. Remember that trans people were among the first people targeted by the Nazi Party in Germany.
Street in Jamaica Plain Saturday, self-proclaimed neo-Nazis protesting a drag queen story hour at the Lauren Greeno house.
It was a powerful example of the type of hate incidents that are spreading rapidly across our country.
While residents who spoke at the meeting said the protesters belonged to a white supremacist group, Taunton police would not confirm or specify what group, if any, the masked men belonged to.
Yeah, that makes sense. White supremacists protect their own.
I just don't want
Insane.
somebody transgender teaching our kids about whatever they're talking about.
Yeah, I'm not even going to bother finding out what they're talking about. I'm just going to be angry about it.
I think it's safe because one of them was wearing a shirt with an AK-47 on
when
it.
you have understanding, you lose the reason to become angry. Anytime people are angry, anytime people overly hate somebody, it's always rooted in misunderstanding. When you understand the reason why people do things, when you understand how people are the way that they are, it's, you know what I'm saying? What's the reason to be angry? But you see, these people will not even attempt to understand them. The moment I did the attempt to understand, like, these people, I understood it. And, like, obviously, like, for anybody, it's a little bit harder to, like, get somebody's perspective when you haven't been in their shoes, when you haven't lived their experience. But the fact of the matter is, we're all human beings, and we all want to, at the very least, just be accepted for who we are in some type of category. You know what I'm saying? So it's like the just selective outrage. It's like after I've taken that time, and of course there's still so much I could learn, but like after I've taken the time to be like, hey, this is not that, like, obviously, like, it's a little bit of overreacting. It just looks ridiculous seeing these people overreact because they're just shouting out straight up misinformation. Like, they are clearly, like, loudly almost announcing that they clearly don't know what they're talking about. Because that is literally what y'all understand. Y'all get it.
Panda Dulce eventually walked to a back room to avoid direct confrontation and hoped it would de-escalate the situation.
So again, people in bright colors teaching about inclusivity and acceptance is bad, but yelling slurs, swear words, and threats and terrifying children is perfectly fine.
Insane.
So this man dressed as a woman, a drag queen.
So this man, who has the F slur for gay people, spelled out with the Facebook logo, the Amazon logo, and the Google logo on his shirt, thinks he is the moral authority here.
They were inviting children to come to this church and do story time with a drag queen for a bunch of children to indoctrinate children into the LGBT HIV lifestyle.
Get it? Because that disease killed a bunch of people while the government did nothing?
Joke. Grooming children for sexual exploitation and molesting in the future. It's disgusting what's happening in our country.
Like, why do y'all think that?
And I want to dive into that further, which I will do in a little bit.
I love children. I worked with them for 30 years, and I don't want them to be perverted, and I don't want them to be destroyed.
It's an abomination to God for a man to dress up as a woman or a woman to dress up as a man. And that might seem harsh to some people, but that's what our faith teaches.
Yeah, in Deuteronomy, how do we tell when we're under the old covenant and when we are under the new covenant? If I say, hey, you can't wear mixed fibers or sit where a menstruating woman is sad, I'm told that that's just the old covenant and we're under a new covenant. But as soon as they want to call people that they don't like an abomination, we're still following the old covenant? If you search for Drag Story Hour Arrest, most of the videos that you're going to find are going to be things like this.
Police say things grew hostile. 3 men were arrested. 1 neo-Nazi and 1 counter-protester were arrested after fighting each other. Police say they had to break up that fight.
County man is under arrest accused of assaulting a drag queen at a library. 28-year-old Scott Miller is accused of pushing the victim and disrupting the drag queen storytime event. This is a Severno Park Community Library.
There's story after story of people assaulting drag queens or other protesters or damaging property, but you will also see this one.
News, we have just confirmed that a registered child sex offender has been reading to children at a Houston Public Library as part of its Drag Queen Story Hour.
This was brought to our attention by a group who's been trying to put an end to the program. A media spokesperson for the library confirms one of those drag queens, Tatiana Malanina, is really Alberto Garza, a child sex offender. In 2008, he was convicted of assaulting an 8-year-old boy.
But then the library revealed this man, Albert Garza, a registered sex offender, was among those participating. He served time for aggravated sexual assault of an 8-year-old in 2008.
We are given a list of names by the group that we get our readers from, and his name was not on the list, so we could not do a background check.
The system admitted on Friday it did not conduct a background check on Garza as policy dictates. We've learned that part of the issue was that Garza listed his name as Mickey Salazar when volunteering and did not provide a birth date or social security number. It slipped through the cracks, and he read to children 3 times. And now if a name is not on a list and can't be checked, the volunteer won't read.
We do background checks, and we do not allow people who have criminal backgrounds to read to our children.
This man should not have been around children.
Facts.
The library messed up here, and they should have done a more thorough background check. But he was also never left alone with a child. The parents were there the entire time, and he was removed without any incident happening within story hour. Again, should not have been there in the first place. But despite the fact that nothing happened, this story has been milked by so many people over and over again.
Well, we learned that at least one story hour presenter was a convicted sex offender. That was in Houston.
Was this an example of political correctness run amok, or was it just a simple mistake? One wonders if perhaps
and the fact that this is the worst example is actually
wants to come spend time with children. It is
very telling.
Even to look into
the fact that this is the worst example that they can pull out is very telling about just how much they're grasping for straws at this situation. Right? Because it's kind of like if they can't even pull out an example where like their fears have actually come true and this person has actually been like done anything wrong. Obviously, we don't want that even a possibility of happening. But the fact that there's no example of that at all, with all these people scouring the internet, scouring all these examples, there's no example of this at all. But once again, as we go and get into this video even more, you're going to see that there's
My name is Anthony Bryan Logan, and today we got to talk about a Wisconsin children's court judge and also the former president of the Drag Queen Story Hour Foundation.
You give
pause for a moment. I had no idea.
Heavy coon vibes. I'm so sorry. Holy shit.
Because,
oh my gosh.
Apparently it does, and this guy was a former president.
He wasn't.
Now, he has been arrested on 7 counts of child. I'm trying to be careful here. I don't want to say the wrong thing, but basically, he had illicit pictures of children on his cell phone, laptop, wherever he had them. He's been arrested on 7 counts of that. Now, are you surprised that this has happened to a guy like this, who is a former president of the Drag Queen Story Hour Foundation? Are you surprised? I'm not surprised, not in the least bit. I've done stories about guys like this, guys that have been participating in the Drag Queen story time.
Mention 3 off your head.
You have drag queens, men that are dressed as women, and they go and read books to children. I'm talking about little kids, babies, like Goo Gaga infants up to about 3, 4, 5 years old. Little kids. Infants. There was one guy that had already been arrested and locked up for child abuse, for child sexual abuse. So I'm not surprised that this guy is on that same thing. It just kind of makes sense. Like at a certain point, you start to see a pattern. And it's like, oh, okay, I see what's going on.
He's talking about a man who was a judge and also did some work with an LGBTQIA organization at one point. He is a creep. He is a bad guy. He should go to jail. But he hasn't done drag, and he's never read to children at a library. And he has never been the president of the Drag Queen Story Hour. Now let's take this opportunity to look at some organizations where more than one person has been arrested.
It's been a tough few weeks for the Catholic Church as allegations of abuse and cover-ups continue to surface from around the world. Here now to comment, the devil.
A sacred trust exploited.
Clergy sexually violating children.
And lives forever changed.
I mean, they took your soul. You know, how are they going to give it back?
These are the stories of those caught in the sex abuse crisis of the Catholic Church.
Where are those protests on Sunday
Sex
morning?
abuse
Where's that
crisis
fervor on a Sunday morning?
That means
Trevor,
it was
Catholics
bad.
aren't really Christians, so it's irrelevant to me. Okay, and you're not a drag queen, and you're mad about them.
Literally.
And yes, they are Christians, but let's look at some non-Catholic people.
A nearly 300-page report investigating sexual abuse
300
charges in the
page?
Southern Baptist Convention showed that survivors'
Southern
allegations
Baptist,
were repeatedly ignored by SBC's executive
Good
committee.
old Southern.
According to the Associated Press, the 7-month investigation by independent firm Guidepost Solutions and contracted by the new executive committee of SBC found several senior executive committee leaders of America's largest Protestant denomination, quote, stonewalled and denigrated survivors of clergy sex abuse over almost 2 decades while seeking to protect their own reputations, even if it meant that convicted molesters continued in ministry with no notice or warning to their current church or congregation.
So I assume this woman immediately started making speeches in front of Baptist churches?
I love children. I've worked with them for 30 years, and I don't want them to be perverted. I don't want them
Won't somebody please think of the children?
Or maybe it's not actually about protecting children.
Come
Maybe
on.
it's about othering, about channeling their anger at a specific target. It's not
Yeah.
that they're angry that they don't have health care or can't afford groceries. They're angry that a drag queen is trying to get access to their children. But the problem is, maybe we should be angry because there are people trying to get access to your children.
Yeah.
The problem is they aren't reading to them in libraries. They're hanging out with them in the youth room. A few
Not
years
the-
ago, I did a video on school youth pastors, and I showed a clip of this guy, Tim Summers.
As you can tell, I am not Pastor Stephen.
Oh, brother.
I'm a little taller. If we haven't had the privilege of meeting, my name is Tim Summers, and I get the honor and privilege of being the youth pastor here at Elevation.
That's right, Elevation Church, the home of yelling a point that makes no
Right.
sense so people will applaud
Right.
Stephen Furtick.
Yeah.
I put wings on your wagons.
What?
My wagons have wings, y'all. I'm gonna get there because he's with me. My wagons have wings.
Tim Summers is the guy I used an example of when I was talking about those youth pastors who always feel the need to talk about how hot their wives are.
And that's my beautiful family. My gorgeous wife. That's my queen. She got me buzzing.
Unfortunately, she's not the only thing that got him buzzing.
Oh,
Youth pastor
Lord.
at Elevation Church is no longer on staff. That removal comes with allegations of misconduct over a decade ago. A spokesperson for Elevation confirmed that Tim Summers was no longer on the church's staff at the time. The church says once it learned of these allegations, it immediately contacted law enforcement in Texas. No charges have been filed.
Recently, the student pastor at the church he was at in Texas was accused of the same thing around that same time. And it is through this investigation of this alleged crime that more people came forward and someone came forward with an accusation. But this isn't an isolated incident.
Have a timeline of
Tim
the sexual assault
Summers.
allegations against a former Lubbock youth pastor. 41-year-old Luke Cunningham is accused of sexually assaulting a child in January 2016. The same year, he started a job as a student pastor at Lubbock's Turning Point Community Church.
Same
He's accused
year?
of sexually assaulting that same child again in October 2018.
Oh, my
He's
gosh.
also accused of sexually assaulting another child
Oh,
in
my
January of
gosh.
2017.
We had a mother who found some disturbing content on her son's phone, brought that to
Son's
to our deputies,
phone!
and we started
Oh.
looking at it and discovered that there was something very wrong with this.
The Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office arrested 36-year-old Moses Escato, a local youth pastor, for what he's accused of doing to a 16-year-old.
Rocky Pope.
Mind you, we could only find 2 examples in the last one. And one was just a guy who slipped through the cracks, was never left alone. These guys are always left alone with your children. They go on youth groups, go on whole vacations, left alone, sleeping in fucking... not sleeping in fucking... what some of them do. But it's like, oh God, this shit is insane. And it's like, I just knew it was going to be south. Like, oh man. I don't know where Elevation Church is, but it sounds pretty south to me. Like, you know what I'm
Inspiration
saying?
Church in Mesquite has known Connor Penny, who also went by Jesse for most of his life. And he says their church community is struggling to reconcile the child sex assault allegations
Struggling
against
to
him. He says Penny
reconcile?
was immediately suspended when the church became aware of the allegations. On Tuesday, he was terminated.
Thank
We
you.
do criminal background checks on all the staff.
They was thinking about taking him back next.
Related to any of this.
Penny worked as a minister to students at the church since August of 2016. And church leaders say they had not been made aware of any allegations prior to the current investigation.
Investigators say 35-year-old Daniel Mayfield filmed multiple girls in the bathroom at First Baptist Gowensville in Landrum, where he was employed as a youth pastor. So far, they've found 6 victims, some as young as 14 years old. A judge denied his bond last night. Mayfield is
Keep
charged
him
with
locked
sexual
up?
exploitation of a minor and
Yo,
1 count
we're
of
at
employment.
like...
Arrest warrants say Mayfield set up cameras in the church's bathroom.
We're damn near at
recording
7,
the girls
y'all.
changing. Investigators told the judge
These
they are
are
still
recent.
working to identify more victims, and there could be more charges coming.
Pastor in Randolph County is accused of sending inappropriate Snapchats to 2 young teens. One of them is a member of his own church.
I'm not gonna lie, y'all. These examples are in the
solicitation.
hundreds.
Police say Rosalie admitted to sending the messages. They were
I'm
sexual
scared
in
to
nature
say
and
even
asked
in the
13 and
thousands.
15-year-old girls
Because there's
to
only
become
like
friends
1,000
with
churches,
benefits.
so in the
And
hundreds.
it's not just men. I mean, it's mostly men, but it's not just men.
Oh,
Whiteside is
wow.
also a former youth minister at Getwell Church in Hernando. It's unknown where the alleged act or acts occurred, but the indictment states it happened between May and November, at a time when Whiteside was in a position of trust or authority over the child.
She looks like,
A youth
oh,
pastor charged with sexual contact
no.
with a child. Shannon Katuisi is from
Oh,
the Protestant Church of the
nasty.
Nazarene in West Houston. She was booked into the Fort
Like, she's not that ugly, but
She's
just,
held on
dude,
$25,000.
why, bro?
In Madison, Broadmoor Baptist Church announced allegations that a youth pastor back in the 1980s
It's like, that is a
groomed
female creep.
12-year-old
Those
girl.
look like
The
female
Clarion Ledger
creeps.
reporting
Like,
an
yo.
abusive sexual relationship began when the girl was 15 years old.
And there is that word again, grooming. This time used a little more accurately than when people call people simply reading to children about accepting others.
Now they're using the
groomers.
word correctly.
A bride could be a good answer. What? You can't become a groom or get groomed without a bride. Right. That's not the kind of grooming.
That's not the kind of...
He's been charged. He's accused of grooming a teenager. Aiken County deputies arrested Joseph Kroll on Friday. He's accused of having sexually explicit conversations with a 15-year-old. That teenager was a former member of his congregation. Grooming is when a person uses the internet to seduce or entice a child under 17.
Talk
No,
about
that's not
it.
what grooming is. Grooming is when someone slowly builds trust over time in order to later take advantage of that trust. Often with minors, often in the form of gifts, compliments, making them feel cool, making them feel heard. Sometimes grooming happens when they're still children and they're taken advantage of when they're still children. And sometimes they wait to swoop in until they turn 18 as a way to avoid the legal consequences. Like how Dennis in Always Sunny explains it.
Like an IRA. You put the money in and wait. And then you make a hefty withdrawal.
Yeah, that's gross.
Jeff Berry, who you can see here avoiding our cameras back in March, minutes after he pled guilty to indecency with a child by contact, was accused of touching a young boy inappropriately back in 1996. Anna says she remembers
You're
seeing
cooked,
her
buddy.
ex-husband spend a lot of time with boys who were 30 to 35 years younger than him.
He sometimes would buy them things, extravagant things sometimes. He would promise them, you know, kind of the world.
Poor wife.
This grooming tactic is typical for child predators to gain their victims' trust, according to the Regional Victim Crisis Center.
How common is it for somebody to groom the person that they plan on abusing?
It is the #1 tool
Come
predators
on.
use.
Executive Director Janie Wawerna says it's sad, but common for the predator's loved ones to ignore signs that something is off.
Sometimes you start realizing there were red flags, and for whatever reason, your heart and your brain didn't let you see them.
That's why these people become youth pastors. The church trusts them, the parents trust them, they are seen as beacons of the community. A red flag must be a misunderstanding. This is a good guy. Have you seen him preach? Have you seen how loving he is? And we want to trust people.
We always
We
do.
want to have a less cynical view of the world. This is from a trailer from a movie called 2025, The World Enslaved by a Virus.
The world as we have known in 2020 does not exist anymore. The virus changed the world.
And it's 2025 right now. What?
Language developed. Meetings are illegal. Traveling is illegal. And Christianity is illegal.
I can't do the most.
Oh, no. Not the Christians.
The movie was made during the pandemic and was about how in 2025 we still wouldn't be allowed to have gatherings because of COVID, and also Christianity would be illegal because of COVID.
One the better question be where our house looks from.
You're just not thinking fourth dimensionally.
Right, I have a real problem. That doesn't matter to me. I think it does. They are from a time when life was different. The time when we could meet our friends, go to restaurants, celebrate whatever and whenever we wanted to.
Wow, moving stuff. But what if I told you that the actor in this scene was also one of the main writers, and also one of the directors for the film, and is also a youth pastor? What a true Renaissance man. This is his IMDb page, with a nice picture of him and his wife. And here's a picture of them on Instagram from their 3-year dating anniversary. And here's one from 3 months later when she turned 18. Yep, I said
Wait. Wait. Finally 18. I can't describe. Okay, now we actually got to read these because what the fuck?
Actor in this scene was also one of the main writers and also one of the directors for the film, and is also a youth pastor. What a true Renaissance man. This is his IMDb page with a nice picture of him and his wife. And here's a picture of them on Instagram from their 3-year.
Okay, 3-year date anniversary, 3 years. Thank you for the last 3 years, my wonderful girlfriend. You made them the most beautiful of my life and showed me that what love really is. I don't deserve you, and I thank Jesus every day for this huge gift he has given me. Okay.
Dating anniversary. And here's one from 3 months later.
So they were dating for 3 years, and 3 months later, you have been my best friend for 4 years. Oh God, that made me sick. Oh, that made me sick. What the fuck? What the fuck?
When she turned 18. Yep, I said youth pastor. He started dating her when she was 14 and he was 20. And he proposed to her right after she turned 18. And here he is with his child bride. He stole her teen years and then her college years. But this isn't an uncommon thing. I've heard story after story of youth pastors marrying someone in their youth group as soon as they turn 18, and they act like it's a noble and holy thing, like how this pastor explains it.
Let me tell you something. You have to tell me,
Sorry.
she got the wrong end of this stick. You so married above you. I already know that. She is so smart. She is so capable. She loves Jesus. This girl learned how to learn, and now there ain't no limitations to her. When you learn how to learn, whatever life throws you, no problem. We'll overcome it too. And that's what I've seen in this woman. I love her more than I love anyone else in the whole world.
Aw, that's sweet. He's talking about how smart his wife is and how she's way better than him. What could be wrong with that?
Until he gets this
that
man.
will never change. Let me tell you.
I know
how
he's guilty.
Did you get her? And here's my only answer. I convinced her to marry me when she was so young she didn't know any better.
I was distracted.
She got the wrong end of this stick. You so married above you. I already know that. She is so smart. She is so capable. She loves Jesus. This girl learned how to learn, and now there ain't no limitations to her. When you learn how to learn, whatever life throws you, no problem. We'll overcome it too. And that's what I've seen in this woman. I love her more than I love anyone else in the whole world.
Aw, that's sweet. He's talking about how smart his wife is and how she's way better than him. What could be wrong with that?
And that will never change. And let me tell you, so how in the world did you get her? And here's my only answer. I convinced her to marry me when she was so young she didn't know any better. And see, guys, this is how you do it. I'm just giving you some advice here. This is how you do it.
Gross. I've talked about Matt Chandler before. I've used clips of his many times. He's a pastor at Village Church in Flower Mound, Texas, and head of the Acts 29 Network, which is a church.
There's just too many of them.
Pastor at Village Church in Flower Mound, Texas, and head of the Acts 29 Network, which is a church planting network. He also uses a lot of hand gestures that have nothing to do with what he's talking about.
You and I, okay. You and I are in a day and age where deconstruction and the turning away from and leaving the faith has become some sort of sexy thing to do. I contend that if you ever experience the grace and mercy of Jesus Christ, actually, that's really impossible to deconstruct from.
That's actually why I left, to be honest, because it's sexy. That's why I upset my family. That's why I left my job that I went to college for. That's why I lost my best friend, because deconstructing just seemed sexy. But Matt Chandler isn't free from controversy.
Sunday service lead pastor Matt Chandler told the congregation that several months ago he was approached by a woman here at the church. She told him that she was concerned about the correspondence he had with one of her friends on Instagram.
I didn't think I had done anything wrong in that. My wife knew that. Her husband knew that.
This guy.
Chandler says he immediately told other senior members who had concerns.
And they had some concerns. And those concerns were not that our messaging was romantic or
Did
sexual.
they drop the messages yet? Did they drop them? Because I remember him talking about this guy. Are they going to release the messages? That's what I need to know.
It was that our conversations were unguarded and unwise. The concerns were really about frequency and familiarity.
In a statement, the church says it hired an independent law firm and found Chandler did not use language appropriate for a pastor, and he did not model a behavior that we expect from him. While the elders believe that this did not rise to the level of disqualification, we do hold elders to a higher standard of behavior. The leave of absence to work on himself was seen as the best course of action.
If I'm honest, I'm just really embarrassed.
The messages were never made public, so we don't know. Maybe it was innocent and just overblown. Maybe he used some swear words and he shouldn't have. Maybe he just messaged too often. Or maybe it was something worse. My guess is that if he had to sit in the penalty box for 3 months, it probably wasn't that innocent. But again, we may never know. And it's probably not the worst controversy any pastor has ever been involved in.
Right. You do that, you go to the box, 2 minutes by yourself, and you feel shame, and then you get free.
But what isn't controversial to most people in the church, for some reason, is the way he met his wife. As shown here in this video that is supposed to be really sweet and nice and talk about their relationship.
This is so fun for me to say now because people thought I was so crazy. And I knew when I left Colorado I was going to marry Lauren Walker. I met Lauren at a youth camp where she was a student and I was the camp pastor.
And right before I met
That's never good. Like, it doesn't matter how quick you say it. That's not okay. Ugh. And it just happens so much, it almost seems like people are trying to make it seem like, no, that's fine. Oh, God.
was when I felt like Jesus became real to me and really understood who he was and what the cross did for me. And I've noticed Matt, and I thought he was cute, but I was like, I do not want to be the camper that has a crush on the camp speaker.
If you've ever been to a Bible camp, which I have many times, you know that it is all about heightened emotions to get them to fall in love with Jesus, especially on that Friday night cry night. It's purposely crafted to manipulate you emotionally. So it's already sketchy to begin with. To then add an underage girl having a crush on the camp speaker, and that camp speaker either not understanding or not caring that she's in a vulnerable state, and also not an adult, not walking away and saying, maybe I should date someone my own age, or saying, this isn't right.
You know?
He decides to go for it.
I can say with all integrity that everything was above board.
With all integrity, is it above board? I think maybe you have to specify that about your relationship. You already have a problem.
I didn't know how it was going to work because it was, there was an age gap. I was in college, she was in high school. The kind of, what do you do with that? You're the camp pastor, she's the camper.
I had to make sure she got to gym class on time.
But here we are 18 years later, 16 years married, and what I felt compelled leaving that camp actually came to fruition.
Whoa, what the? Why is my girlfriend here? Oh, is she that teacher in the white? No, she's a part-time frozen yogurt chef.
When I was doing my internship at a church in the youth department, a student told me that she had feelings for me. I didn't have to think about the logistics of it, or how to make sure it was above board, because I just said, no, I'm your youth pastor. I wasn't like that youth pastor who handed out these stickers to his kids. Meanwhile, certain people are fighting for children's safety by trying to ban drag performers from reading to children.
House Bill 2186 would ban drag performances in public places or in settings where minors could be present, with consequences of fines and up to a 2-year jail sentence.
Oh, brother.
We want to make sure that if it's being done in public, that there are some guardrails in play.
While also being okay with the fact that America has a child marriage crisis.
I've heard you talk about parents' rights to raise their kids how they want. In fact, I just double-checked. You voted no on making it illegal for kids to be married to adults at the age of 12 if their parents consented to it. You said, actually, that should be the law because it's the parents' right and the kids' right to decide what's best for them, to be raped by an adult. Okay?
Do you know any kids who have been
With
married
marriage.
at age 12?
That was the law.
Do you know
You
any
voted
kids?
not to change it.
Do you know any kids who have been married at age 12?
I don't need to.
I do. And guess what? They're still married.
Gentlemen.
Often at
Oh
the hand
my
of even
gosh,
couples
that is
who don't want
disgusting.
teens to be unwed.
Oh
Barrera's
my.
parents pulled her from school because of some mental health issues. Desperate for answers, they turned to a local youth pastor.
He said, you should bring Ashley and Craig to my youth group on Wednesdays, just a new start. And so that's how I met Jason, and that's where my life turned forever.
Great House was like a mentor, so it made sense that when he was strapped for money, the family invited him to move in.
Unfortunately, that took a turn to where our bond and mentorship turned into something that wasn't supposed to happen. And one thing led to another, and I ended up losing my virginity to Jason at 14.
What did your parents think at the time when all this was happening?
Her response was, how was it? You know, her response wasn't, she wasn't angry, she didn't try to throw him out.
A year later, Pereira was pregnant. Her parents insisted the two get married. They did just that, with parental consent. Pereira, now 16, and Greathouse, 26.
That was it, is that it was my responsibility to make things work since I decided to give my body to somebody, you know. But I was...
That's not how that works.
Pereira filed for divorce.
I had to emancipate myself so I could get an apartment and go to college and do all these things because I wasn't 18. I was a minor. So I would have ended up in foster care if I had not emancipated myself from my family.
That's so nasty.
Again, I wish this was an isolated case, but it isn't.
What was that statistic?
Case, but it isn't.
Emancipated myself from my family.
Again.
Over 200,000 children.
I wish this was an isolated case, but it isn't.
Those child marriages, 87% were girls. And 86% were married
Right now,
adults.
child marriage is legal in 44 states.
From 2000 to 2018, the number of child marriages per year has steadily dropped from nearly 80,000 to just under 2,500. But during that period, nearly 300,000 children were married in the U.S. 86% of them were girls, and nearly 60,000 of those marriages involved children so young they could have been considered victims of a sex crime.
I don't know the percentage of those who met the person they were forced to marry at a drag story hour versus at a church, but I'm willing to place money on which one is higher.
Started hearing about some sex crimes in our churches. And so they decided to take that and use that against us and claim that all of us are bad.
Maybe you're not all bad, but it's not making you seem safe.
Right.
It's not making you seem like a good place to send children.
Because this church here and this college here...
Because obviously overgeneralization in any type of category is bad. Just because you see one example doesn't mean you group everybody like that. But also, you can't ignore consistencies and certain patterns. I did not see any type of pattern. I saw a lot of people reacting out of fear and not out of actually taking the time to educate themselves.
This preacher messed with this young girl in the church, and so they're saying that the IFB movement is filled with covering up sin and all this. By the way, it does happen. It happens in every denomination, every church, every movement. Anywhere you got people, you're going to have sinners. That's right. Anywhere you got a crowd, you're going to have a few bad people out there, and that's why, preacher, you better have some walls up. You better have some protections up at your church because that guy's lurking around the hall somewhere. My point, though, was there's something worse than that, and that's the guy walking around your halls and classrooms trying to sway people that the King James Bible is not the Word of God. He's 10,000 times worse than any predator that comes to your church.
Is that worse? Because if I had a child, and I had a choice between sending them to a place that doesn't believe that the King James Version of the Bible is God's Word, or a place that is full of sex offenders, I'm going to go with the one that doesn't believe that the King James Version is the Word of God.
Literally.
Different pastors have different responses to the question, why do pastors keep failing?
Oh, we've got a bit of a scoop here. We've got Dr. Stephen Lawson is standing here today because he's been preaching at the Banner of Truth Youth Conference, and I've just got one very quick question to ask him. What advice would you give to any sort of young men that are thinking about going into the ministry? What advice would you give them, Steve?
Well, it begins with their own personal heart and their walk with the Lord. And really, you've got to be a godly man. And there are a lot of young men who want to go into the ministry who are trying to be as much like the world as they can be, and they need to be as much like heaven as they can be.
Another church in North Texas set to be looking for a new pastor after theirs was fired, accused of having an inappropriate relationship with a woman. Trinity Bible Church of Dallas announced the indefinite removal of lead pastor Stephen J. Lawson.
So they come into ministry and they have, let's just call it a pet lion. Some little sin in their life. I'm not trying to downplay the sin. I'm just saying it's not full grown. It's an area of his life he should be working on or she should be working on. They shouldn't be. They should be confessing this. They should be putting it to death. They should be putting, but they're not. And then God starts to use them. Because God doesn't need you to be all that he's asking you to be for him to flex. And so God starts using him in profound ways. But they also hadn't put this lion to death. And now that lion's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, but so's the platform. The platform's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And with the bigger platform, oftentimes, I don't think we can judge faithfulness by outcomes. Yeah. But the guys we're talking about here, now you got a church of 5,000. Now you got a church of 6,000. Now, who are you going to tell about this lion? We can't tell anybody about this lion.
That's a nice way to say that he came in a creep and he's just become more of a creep. These people just can't say that a big audience doesn't mean that a God has blessed you or you're definitely doing the Lord's work. It just means that you're good at getting people's attention. You're a good public speaker. You're a charismatic person.
I will admit, the man certainly has charisma.
Because there are some pastors, and I think it's the exception to the rule, there are some pastors who grievously fall, they commit adultery, they embezzle church funds, they lie, they did something terrible, they had false teaching, and then they come back and God uses them greatly, and they've truly been changed. But it seems that this is the exception to the rule. All of the men I just listed, they all seem to be fully resisting any genuine life transformation. So the answer is generally no, but sometimes yes. Let's talk about the details. Okay.
Those people just have better PR and are better at acting. They just found a way to continue the con.
So this isn't new. King David, as great as he was, as much as he was the heart of God, as much as the Bible admires, he did everything
don't
in his
get me
generation.
started of
There
King
was still
David,
this
bro.
incident with Bathsheba.
Fuck.
The incident being an abuse of power for sexual gain and murdering her husband.
And what did it take for King David? He was resting from battle. He was up on a rooftop, and he happened to look over the roof, and there's Bathsheba. And he goes, boy, she looks really good. And a whole trail
Doesn't he let me see.
of sin comes from that, a whole trail of degradation for him personally and for the Israelite nation. But I remind people, we still read his songs. We still sing along to what David wrote. Yeah. He's still inspired, and God restored him. So let us have mercy on those who have fallen.
Nah, I'm good. And to be fair, these guys weren't talking about pastors who hurt children. But they set the stage. They make the pastors feel like there's always a redemption arc. Hey, here's the Bible had flaws. God allows U-turns. God will always forgive you, no matter what. They don't need to teach about consent, because all sex is bad. So why would we teach you how to do some bad stuff? Plus, there's the excuse I've heard over and over again. The reasons pastors fall is because Satan knows that God is using them, so he is going to do everything he can to tear them down. Like when I did a video about the Jezebel spirit, and I used a clip of a pastor saying this.
Satan is a strategist. So if there's a person who's going to lead 10 people to Christ over his lifetime, and there's another person who's going to lead 10,000 to Christ, whom do you think he's going to attack the most? Satan is smart. He is smart. I mean, he's evil, but he's smart. So he is going to attack a leader. And the larger your church grows, the more the Jezebel spirit's coming after you.
Former megachurch pastor acknowledged what he called an inappropriate relationship on evangelical trips during his 20s with
he was setting up the stage for himself.
He stepped down from ministry because of something he did with who he described as a young lady. That young lady was 12 years old. But a sin is a sin, right? Young lady, child, what's the difference? Both are bad.
Oh my gosh.
Why do you have to get specific? Robert Morris
I'm getting
was
disgusted.
tempted by the evil one. Robert Morris is the evil one. Recently, he was finally arrested.
Last summer, Robert Morris stepped down as senior pastor of Gateway Church in South Lake, part of a multi-city church network with tens of thousands of worshipers that Morris founded a quarter of a century ago. Monday, he was booked into the Osage County Jail in Oklahoma, days after being indicted on charges of lewd acts to a child.
Before the arrest, before any of this came out, he tried to make his victim sign a non-disclosure agreement in exchange for money so that she could never go public about it. She refused and recently spoke at a hearing where lawmakers are considering whether or not to make it illegal to have people sign NDAs when it comes to sex crimes.
Please.
I began the lifelong journey to sort through these emotional challenges. My life seemed to attract more shame, while Robert's attracted fame. Through decades of counseling off and on, seminars, books, and conversations with friends and family, I have found my way to understanding child sexual abuse, forgiveness, and healing.
He took her childhood, he took her teenage years, he gave her trauma, and he got fame, and was known worldwide as being a man of God. If God used this man, fuck that God.
I think that that's exactly what it is, a roller coaster, because at 17, when I told, I did feel as though I was the one at fault, even to the extent that Robert Morris's wife, Debbie, called to tell me she forgave me. So still trying to...
Let's clarify that. The wife forgave you for being a 12-year-old who
Yes.
her husband was having sex with, right?
Correct.
Okay.
I've talked before about people who have had
Disgusting.
to apologize to the youth
Oh
pastor's
my
wife
gosh.
after they were sexually assaulted,
I
or had to
wanna
apologize
spit,
to the
ugh.
church body for getting pregnant when a church elder forced himself on her. A victim of sexual assault doesn't have to apologize and is not to blame. I'll end
Nasty.
on one more pastor. And for
Okay.
every story I talk about today, there are so many more
There are
that
many
are
more.
not public.
Yeah.
This one's about Pastor Andy Savage. And that's Andy Savage, not Randy Savage.
Macho Man Randy Savage. Means nothing. Nothing means nothing.
Andy was on the rise. He was a successful pastor with a book about marriage coming out when accusations were made that 2 decades prior, something he'll repeat over and over again, that it was 20 years ago.
A student on staff at a church in Texas more than 20 years ago. This incident was dealt with in Texas 20 years ago.
He sexually assaulted a teenage girl, or as he calls it, had a sexual incident.
I regretfully had a sexual incident with a female high school senior in the church.
There was still this incident with Bathsheba.
Instead of firing him and explaining what happened to the congregation, they let him speak. They gave someone who admitted to hurting a child sexually a stage, a platform.
For any painful memories or fresh wounds this has created for anyone, I'm sorry. And I humbly ask for your forgiveness. I love you all very much.
No. What are y'all doing?
The apology, if you could even call it that, was when he ran out of the truck screaming, oh my God, what have I done? You have to take this to the grave with you.
I would like to use more of this clip, but due to copyright issues, that's not going to be possible.
What is
But
this clip?
she is rightfully heartbroken by his speech. She's heartbroken by the church's response and what happens when he is done talking.
Andy Savage.
They gave him a standing ovation. He then went and hid under a rock, and we
no.
don't know where he is to this day. Just kidding. He started his own church. The church is called Grace Valley because God gives grace in the valley. And if you go to the website and look at Andy's bio, you'll see that Andy decided to start this church when he was going through a valley of life. Of course, not mentioned is the valley he was going through was getting caught for sexual assault.
Yep.
And he gives them a season of recovery from their shame. Some of you have done things, or it's been done to you. You have entered into a season of shame, and which really equals a season of recovery. You need to let your beard grow back out. You need some time. And I talk to a lot of people who are going through valleys. That's kind of my number one thing, right? I want to walk with people through the valley. And I have to say this often. I had to say it this week with a group of guys I was talking to. One of the great lessons that I learned in the valley, and what these men learned with King David protecting them, is that you can't sprint through a valley. Sometimes you just have to sit in it and recover.
This whole thing reminds me of an old Onion video.
A dedicated student and a fierce competitor. But his greatest achievement came off the court in his freshman year when he overcame the trauma of committing a terrible. In his fourth semester, Jacob is succeeding both on and off the court. He has a 2.7 GPA and a steady girlfriend, and he's refusing to let what happened to the girl he define him. I thought, there's no way I can make it back.
Oh my gosh.
Here I am.
That shit.
So often,
Damn.
churches view accusations as something that happened to the pastor or to the congregation. We hear about
Oh
the
my
men-
gosh. Some niggas need to see that video. Oh my gosh. Yo. That's literally the way some people reframe it. That's literally the way some people reframe it. Like, that shit is
often,
mind blowing.
Churches view accusations as something that happened to the pastor or to the congregation. We hear about the men as being the victims of the Me Too movement instead of the people they victimized. They talk about how they're going to move on as a church and how they're going to heal together, but they don't talk about the person that was hurt. So many people within the churches are really good at pointing fingers outside of the church, finding evil wherever they can, but never look inward. Jesus said that before you take the speck out of your neighbor's eye, remove the plank from your own eye. Yet the church loves to find non-existent specks wherever they can, and they love to spread fear and misinformation, claiming to be doing it because they care about the children. But if they actually did care about the children, they would start the work at home. They would realize that the call is coming from inside the house.
It's coming from inside the house.
Hey, everybody, thank you so much for making it this far. If you know somebody who might benefit from it, send it their way. Love you so much.
Work, Sky Moon.
Shout out, believe it or not. Shout out. Yeah. Very much needed discussion. Very. definitely not talked about enough. W video, W binge. I'll have more videos eventually. Appreciate anyone who likes, subscribe, all of that, and keep thinking. Peace.